History doesn't always reveal itself through kings or famous explorers. Sometimes it waits for an ordinary person, a teenage shepherd, a missing goat, a single stone, and one forgotten cave hidden above the Dead Sea. What happened next wasn't just another archaeological discovery. It uncovered manuscripts so ancient that they rewrote chapters of human history. This is the true story of the Dead Sea Scrolls, long before archaeologists arrived. Long before museums displayed ancient manuscripts, the cliffs surrounding the Dead Sea had been silently guarding a secret. The Judean desert, located between Jerusalem and the Dead Sea, is one of the driest places on Earth. Summer temperatures often rise above 40 degrees Celsius. Rain is rare. Humidity is extremely low. For thousands of years, these harsh conditions naturally preserved leather, parchment, and papyrus that would have decayed almost anywhere else. Without anyone realizing it, nature itself had become the world's oldest archive. The year was 1947. A teenage Bedouin shepherd named Muhammad ed-Dib from the Ta'amira tribe was moving through these cliffs while searching for one of his missing goats. For generations, his family had lived a nomadic life across this desert. They knew every valley, every trail, every hidden spring. But there was one cave they had never explored. Muhammad looked toward a small opening high above the rocks. Maybe his goat had wandered inside. Instead of climbing directly into the cave, Muhammad did something completely ordinary. He picked up a small stone and threw it into the darkness. He expected silence, or perhaps the frightened sound of a goat. Instead, crash, the sharp sound of breaking pottery echoed through the cave. Muhammad stopped. That sound didn't belong in a natural cave. Someone, long ago, had placed clay jars inside, without realizing it. He had just awakened a mystery that had remained untouched for nearly 20 centuries. Curiosity overcame fear. Muhammad climbed into the cave. As his eyes adjusted to the darkness, he noticed several tall clay jars standing against the walls. Some were sealed, others had broken lids. Inside one of them, bundles wrapped in old linen cloth. He carefully opened one. Inside was a long scroll, made from darkened parchment, covered with faded Hebrew writing. It looked like old leather. He had no idea. He was holding one of the oldest surviving manuscripts ever discovered. Muhammad didn't celebrate. He didn't know he had made history. Like many Bedouin families at the time, he believed the old scrolls might simply have some value in the local antiquities market. He carried several of them out of the cave, still unaware that the journey of those fragile manuscripts had only just begun. The scrolls would reach scholars in Jerusalem, and what they discovered would surprise the entire academic world. Those weathered scrolls had survived wars, empires, earthquakes, and nearly 2,000 years of silence. But the greatest mystery wasn't how they survived. It was who wrote them, and why they were hidden in the first place. That answer changes everything. After leaving the cave, Muhammad ed-Dib and members of his tribe carried several of the scrolls to Bethlehem. At first, nobody believed they were important. The ancient manuscripts changed hands through local antiquities dealers, until they finally reached religious scholars in Jerusalem. The moment experts carefully unrolled the fragile parchments, the room fell silent. The handwriting, the material, and the style of the text suggested something extraordinary. These weren't medieval manuscripts. They appeared to be far older than anyone expected. One manuscript immediately caught the attention of researchers. Today, it is known as the Great Isaiah Scroll. Unlike many ancient texts that survive only as small fragments, this scroll was almost completely intact, stretching over 7 meters in length. It contained the entire book of Isaiah. For historians, finding such a well-preserved manuscript from antiquity was almost unimaginable. As researchers continued their work, they discovered that not every scroll was the same. Most had been written on carefully prepared parchment made from animal skin. Others were written on papyrus, produced from reeds that grew along the Nile. And one extraordinary document, known today as the Copper Scroll, wasn't written on parchment at all. Its words had been engraved onto thin sheets of copper. It remains one of the most unusual ancient manuscripts ever discovered. As more texts were translated, Researchers found that the scrolls had been written in 3 different languages. Most were written in Hebrew. Others appeared in Aramaic, the everyday language spoken by many people in Judea during that period. A smaller number were written in Greek, reflecting the cultural influences of the ancient Mediterranean world. Together, these languages revealed just how diverse this region had become over 2,000 years ago. Many people believe the Dead Sea Scrolls contain only biblical writings, but that's only part of the story. The collection also included community rules, ancient prayers, poetry, commentaries, calendars, legal documents, and writings describing daily religious life. Together, they offered historians an extraordinarily detailed picture of Jewish society during the Second Temple period. It was like opening a time capsule, sealed for nearly 20 centuries. The discovery raised an even bigger question. Who had copied these hundreds of manuscripts with such incredible precision? Who sealed them inside clay jars and left them hidden deep within the caves? To answer that mystery, archaeologists would return to the desert. What they uncovered next would completely transform the story. The first cave was only the beginning. Once news of the discovery spread, professional archaeologists traveled to the cliffs near Qumran. What they expected was a single hidden cache. What they actually found was far more extraordinary. Between 1947 and 1956, researchers explored the surrounding caves one by one. By the end of the excavations, 11 caves had produced ancient manuscripts and thousands of fragile fragments. Together, they represented the remains of more than 900 different manuscripts. This was no accidental collection. It looked like an entire ancient library. Just a short distance from the caves, archaeologists uncovered the ruins of an ancient settlement known as Qumran. The site contained living quarters, storage rooms, water channels, large ritual baths, and workshops where pottery was produced. For decades, many scholars believed this settlement belonged to a Jewish religious group called the Essenes. According to this leading theory, they copied sacred texts, lived disciplined communal lives, and stored valuable manuscripts inside nearby caves for protection. However, not every historian agrees. Some researchers argue that at least some of the scrolls may have been brought from Jerusalem during the Roman War. The exact origin of every scroll remains an active area of research even today. If these manuscripts were so valuable, why hide them inside dark caves? Many historians believe the answer lies in one of the most violent periods of ancient Judea. In 66 AD, the first Jewish revolt began against the Roman Empire. As Roman forces advanced through the region, communities faced destruction. One leading theory suggests that precious manuscripts were sealed inside clay jars and hidden in the caves to protect them from the coming invasion. The Qumran settlement had been destroyed, and the people who hid the scrolls may never have had the chance to return. Finding ancient manuscripts was only the first challenge. Now scientists had to answer another question. How old were they? Researchers used 2 important methods. The first was radiocarbon dating, which estimated the age of the parchment. The second was paleography, the scientific study of ancient handwriting. By comparing writing styles with other dated manuscripts, experts concluded that most of the Dead Sea Scrolls were produced between approximately 250 BCE and 68 CE. Modern research using improved radiocarbon analysis and artificial intelligence continues to refine these dates even further. The scientific results astonished historians. Before the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered, the oldest complete Hebrew Bible manuscripts available to scholars were about 1,000 years younger. Researchers could study biblical texts copied centuries earlier than ever before. It gave historians an unprecedented window into the religious world of the Second Temple period, and transformed the study of ancient Judaism and the history of the Hebrew Bible. But the greatest surprise wasn't simply the age of the scrolls, it was what they revealed. Some manuscripts closely matched later biblical texts. Others contained writings the modern world had never seen before. For the first time, historians could compare ancient traditions that had remained hidden for nearly 2,000 years. And what they discovered next changed biblical scholarship forever. When researchers finally began translating the manuscripts, they realized they weren't looking at a single book. The Dead Sea Scrolls were an entire collection of ancient writings. Some contained copies of books from the Hebrew Bible. Others preserved religious laws, daily community rules, poetry, prayers, commentaries, calendars, and writings describing the expected arrival of a future Messiah. Each manuscript revealed another piece of life during the Second Temple period. It was like hearing voices that had been silent for almost 2,000 years. Among every manuscript discovered, one stood above all the others: the Great Isaiah Scroll. Written more than 2,000 years ago, it is the oldest nearly complete copy of the Book of Isaiah ever found. When scholars compared it with much later medieval copies, they were amazed. Although small spelling and wording differences existed, the overall message had been preserved with remarkable accuracy across centuries of handwritten copying. For historians, this became one of the most important textual discoveries ever made. But not every scroll looked the same. One manuscript confused researchers from the very beginning. Unlike the others, it wasn't written on parchment. It had been engraved onto thin sheets of copper. Today, it is known as the Copper Scroll. Instead of prayers or scripture, it appears to describe dozens of locations where treasures were supposedly hidden. Over the years, many people searched for the treasure mentioned in the scroll, yet no confirmed discovery has ever matched its descriptions. Whether it records real hidden wealth or something symbolic remains one of archaeology's greatest unanswered mysteries. Before 1947, scholars had very few ancient Hebrew biblical manuscripts for comparison. The Dead Sea Scrolls changed everything. For the first time, researchers could compare copies separated by nearly 1,000 years. The discovery transformed the study of ancient Judaism, the Hebrew Bible, biblical languages, ancient writing traditions, and the history of the Second Temple period. Universities around the world launched new research projects. Even today, scrolls remain one of the most studied archaeological discoveries ever made. The story didn't end with the excavation. As technology advanced, scientists found new ways to study the fragile manuscripts without damaging them. Using multispectral imaging, researchers revealed faded letters invisible to the human eye. More recently, artificial intelligence has helped scholars analyze handwriting styles and estimate the age of individual manuscripts with a greater precision. Even after nearly 80 years of research, the Dead Sea Scrolls continue to reveal new information. History is still speaking. After decades of research, many questions have been answered, but not all. Who wrote every scroll? Who decided to hide them? Could more undiscovered caves still exist beneath the Judean cliffs? The search may not be over, and in the final chapter, we'll discover where these priceless manuscripts are today, and why one shepherd's simple decision continues to inspire the world. Today, the Dead Sea Scrolls are protected as some of the world's most valuable historical manuscripts. Many of the most important scrolls are preserved at the Shrine of the Book, part of the Israel Museum in Jerusalem. Because these manuscripts are extremely fragile, only a small selection is displayed to the public at any one time. Most remain inside carefully controlled storage rooms where temperature, humidity, and light are constantly monitored. The same dry conditions that helped preserve them for nearly 2,000 years are now recreated using modern technology. Although the scrolls were discovered in the last century, the research is far from over. Every year, historians, archaeologists, and language specialists continue studying thousands of tiny fragments. Some pieces are no larger than a postage stamp. Yet even the smallest fragment can help scholars reconstruct ancient texts, correct missing words, or better understand the people who lived more than 2,000 years ago. The Dead Sea Scrolls are not simply relics of the past. They remain an active field of scientific research. Despite decades of research, important questions still remain. Were all the scrolls copied at Qumran? Or were some brought from Jerusalem before the Roman army arrived? Or were several groups involved? And perhaps the biggest question of all, could undiscovered manuscripts still be waiting inside unexplored caves? For archaeologists, the story of the Dead Sea Scrolls is still being written. When Muhammad ad-Dib threw a stone into a dark cave, he wasn't searching for history. He was simply looking for a missing goat. Yet that ordinary moment connected the modern world with voices written more than 2,000 years ago. Sometimes, history doesn't reveal itself through great battles or famous kings. Sometimes, it waits patiently for one curious person to ask one simple question: what's inside that cave? The Dead Sea Scrolls were never the greatest discovery because they contained gold or precious jewels. Their true treasure was knowledge. They preserved ancient voices, protected history through centuries of war and change, and gave humanity an extraordinary window into the past. Even today, their pages continue to answer old questions and inspire new ones. Because history is never truly silent. It only waits for someone willing to listen. If you enjoy real history, forgotten civilizations, and discoveries that change the world, you're in the right place. Subscribe to VelMyst UK, because the next mystery may still be waiting beneath the earth.